Hey, pretty girls. It's your girl, Evangelist Britt, and you are tuned in to the Pretty Girls Hill podcast. I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded, but I am back. Baby, life was lifing, and I just took a break. But I am back. I'm better, and I am about to stomp all over the devil's head. I have a lot in store for the next few podcasts. We are about to actually embark on a grief series. Um, I am not the queen of grief, but I believe that I have a very different outlook on grief than what society says grief should look like. And I believe that my experiences through the process of grief are going to help some other people through their processes. I also want to preface today by saying that today's episode is going to be a little different. I am actually going to use this episode today to pay special tribute to one of my pretty girls who recently transitioned from this life to the next and is now resting in the arms of our Heavenly Father. I'm going to be paying tribute to Apostle U, Denise Chase. Um, she meant a lot to me. And I have been going back and forth in my mind about how I wanted to do this tribute. In my mind, I have been trying to perfect it. And that was one of the things that she stayed on me about. And so today I am going to do as she often advised me to do. And that was to let go of perfection and go from my heart and just go with the flow today. So I'm not using a particular format today. I'm not going in a specific order today. I ask that you bear with me because this is an extraordinary loss in my life as well as others. And we literally just laid her to rest this past Saturday. Um, so emotions are still a little high. But I am going to do the best that I can to get through today and just honor who she was um, in my own way. And the best way that I can do that, I can't tell you every story because we will literally be here past January. But the best way I can do that is just to tell you about who she was. Um, Not just an apostle, she was a mother, she was a wife, a grandmother, she was a sister, a friend. She was whatever you needed her to be at any given time. She was often referred to as the breaker, the pusher, because she was not afraid to tell you the truth. She would stand flat footed and look the devil square in his eyes and let him know that he was already defeated. She was a powerhouse for the kingdom of God. And when I tell you that this woman was on fire for God, she poured into our lives. And I definitely believe that the mantle that she carried was extremely heavy, but she carried it with grace. And she left parts of that mantle here in each and every one of us. So there is a large torch for us to carry in remembrance of her. Um, I was blessed to meet Apostle Chase through my dear sister, Dr. Apostle Stacy Woods Burris. I will refer to her as sis. Um, because that's just our relationship. We were actually getting ready to travel to Tobago for a ministry assignment, and I was traveling in support of my sis. And she later told me that Apostle Chase was going to be joining us on this trip. And I'm not a people person, so I was a little nervous. I was a little hesitant because I didn't really know how I would be around someone new that I had never met. But in meeting her just over a Zoom call, it was not the ideal meeting because I had a lot going on that particular day. I was already frustrated and I didn't really want to be on the Zoom call, but to know me is to know when it comes to those two, I'm putting everything to the side. Um, so I put my feelings to the side for my sister and I got on that Zoom call. Um, After that call, God began to deal with me because I definitely had my guard up. And he told me that I had to let it down. He told me that I had to let her in. And we had multiple Zoom calls preparing for this trip to Tobago. And so more and more, I would let my guard down because we had prayer calls. We were fasting together. And I was not going to not support my sister because I was in my own feelings about not knowing someone. And closer to time for us to leave for Tobago, I said, I called sis and I said, hey, I want to get us a room the night before the trip, and I want us to all be in the same place because we're leaving from the same airport, but it just makes it a lot easier for us to be in the same place, go to the airport at the same time. And she was down for it. She let Apostle Chase know that this was what I wanted to do. Apostle Chase was on board, and we were all coming from 3 places to meet in New Orleans. And sis got there first. Sis got there first, and then I got there. And we were just sitting there talking. And I said, I heard something outside. And I said, I believe that might be Apostle Chase. And so right after I said that, she knocked on the door and she was singing. And so I got up and I opened the door. And she hugged me so tight. You would have thought that she had known me all of my life. But she hugged me so tight. And it was the type of hug that you really don't think you need or know you need, but you really do need it. It was like a mother's hug. And you just lean into this hug, and it's like whatever you were feeling, whatever you were going through, it just kind of washes away. And we all got up and we went to go eat. And we came back to the room and we talked and we laughed and we sang. I can't get my words out right now because, honey, this is still unreal to me. But um, we just had a good night. We barely slept. We all piled up in the bed. Um, it was just a good night. And we got up the next morning. We went to the airport. We had a interesting time getting there, but it was still a good time. We just had a lot of flights and transfers, and we were mesmerized and we were in awe of the scenery when we got there. We cried together, we prayed together. Like, you would have thought that this connection again was a lifetime connection. Um when we got to Tobago, we were so tired and exhausted. All we wanted was showers and to go to sleep. The next morning, um, Apostle Chase and I ended up having a conversation. And I think this was like the point where I knew that she was a godsend for me. I've always known for all of the years that sis was a godsend for me from the beginning. But this particular conversation, which was one of many in those few days, she let me know that she knew that I was hesitant to meet her. And this is not a situation where my sis was telling her, "Oh, Brittany don't like people." That's not how that went. And I know for a fact that's not how that went. But she let me know, I know that you were hesitant to meet me, but I also want you to know that God is calling me to you. And I already know you're going to be my rebellious daughter, but I am going to love the hell out of you. And first of all, I was thinking, I don't have no hell in me. I am rebellious, but I don't have no hell in me. But um I accepted that. I had never heard anybody say anything like that to me, but like I said, she was very transparent. She did not sugarcoat anything. And she said, I am literally going to love the hell out of you, and there is nothing you can do about it. So I knew from that moment that even if I continued to fight, even if I continued to push back, that she wasn't going anywhere. And it rang so true in my life for the time that she has been a part of my life. Um, she started giving me assignments. And I was like, why is she telling me to read all these books? Why? And so one of the books that she told me to read was The Bait of Satan by John Bevere. And that was actually the first book that I read. And I read it in the span of a day. And I immediately knew why she was having me to read that book. And it has become one of my favorite books to read. I still reference that book and several other books by him. Um, One of the things that I also quickly learned concerning Apostle Chase and instruction, her instructions to instruct you came directly from God. And the way that I knew this was because if she told me to do something and I didn't do it, nothing would go right until I went back and did it. And so I learned quickly that when she told me to do something, that I needed to go ahead and do it. So much transpired miraculously on this trip to Tobago. Although she was not there just to support our sister, but she was on assignment for me. Um, but we went to Tobago expecting some things from God. And when I tell you God showed up in those moments for those days of that conference, when I tell you that there were some moments that I literally saw the hand of God move, the devil was so mad that he began to attack us in the airports. I don't know why, but every airport that we went through, I kept getting stopped on the way back. We kept getting bags flagged. It was just chaotic. When we got back to the United States, there were some things that transpired due to miscommunication. Then throughout 2 days after I got back, I lost my job. And when I tell you that these two women stood in the gap for me and what I was going through, because I was already going through a lot, and losing the job was just the icing on the cake. But they prayed for me, they encouraged me, they stood in the gap for me when I didn't even have the words for myself. And Apostle Chase became my life coach. But throughout that year, the devil was so mad to where we all got sick at the same time. We all had to end up having surgeries back to back to back. We all had to be there for one another, whether it was us being by one another's side, or if it was one person in the hospital and I'm texting from here. They were in the same place. So I'm texting from here, how is she doing? What's going on? Let me know what's going on. Um, I won't go into details about what we all had, because if you know us in real life, then you know what was going on. But um, the devil really attacked our relationships. He attacked our bodies. He tried to attack our spirits, but we were so unbreakable during that time. Um, we all recovered. We all healed um, during that time, and the devil was still defeated. So at that point, I knew that I had two of the strongest women in the world who were definitely going to be there for me, and I was going to be there for them. So God had ordained that connection. Now, her coaching me, her being my life coach was so funny at times because she would really, really break me down. Like, she told me from the beginning, I know you don't cry, but I'm going to make you cry. She said, my goal is to make you cry because I'm going to break that hardness off of you. And that's why they called her the breaker, because if there were things on you that weren't supposed to be there, oh, she was going to break it. And then she was going to push you into your destiny. So when she finally made me cry, we laughed about this for a long time because I was telling her something and I was not in a space to hear anything positive. I didn't want to pray about it. I didn't want to hear that anybody was going to pray for me. And when she was telling me the opposite of what I was saying, I was not in agreement. And she got real stern with me. That soft voice came up a little bit and she said, "You know what your problem is? You need to grow up." And I began to cry because she had never raised her voice at me. But she did not, those tears did not faze her. She was not moved by those tears at all because she continued to tell me the truth about myself that day. And so she said, "You need to grow up. It is time for you to grow up. You want everything to go your way. And when it doesn't go your way, you want to shut down. You want to shut down like a 3-year-old and throw a tantrum." She said, "You want everything to be perfect. And because Brittany's little world isn't perfect, you want to quit. You want to give up. And that is not happening today. And even if you choose to be mad at me, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to call because you're going to eventually talk to me and you're going to eventually get over it." When I say she number one had my attention. And by the time she got through, I was sobbing. And at the end, she said, "And I still love you." And the crazy part is, she was right. I knew that it was time for me to grow up in the spirit. I knew that there were some things that I needed to do. And she just put me in my place. And I was grateful for it. After I got through crying, after I got through being upset. And no, I didn't stop talking to her at that moment. Yes, she kept calling and she kept coaching. But she really did break me down, and nobody had ever done that because I really had become so hardened with life that I just didn't show emotion. And she broke that off for me and she put me in tune with my emotions. um Later throughout time, she began to push me into the things that I kept saying that I was afraid to do. Long ago, sis told me to write a book, the book that's out now. That book was years in the making. She prophesied that book probably maybe within the first year of us meeting, and I know we have known each other who close to 20 years. And I I would write at the book, but I wouldn't write the book. I never did publish the book. And she said, "You're gonna write that book. You're gonna publish that book." And I was like, "I don't want to write this book." And one day she just told me, "I didn't ask you what you wanted to do. We're gonna get that book done." And so she did know that I had completed the book and I published the book. Unfortunately, I did not get the chance to send her a copy of the book, but I am going to frame a copy of the book signed for her. But she is the reason why, part of the reason why I am where I am today when it comes to ministry. She is part of the reason why I was inspired to become a life coach. Um, I have those two to really thank for the things that they instilled in me. When I say that I really did enjoy being the little sister, I do enjoy being the little sister between those two. I mean that. Like that, I call a lot of people sister, but there'll never be another Apostle Chase, and there'll never be another Apostle Woods Burris for me. There'll never be a sisterhood like us three. Um, Life kind of separated us for a while because I literally had gotten in my own way. I had gotten to a place to where I was trying to heal, but not really realizing that I was responsible for my healing. They were responsible for supporting me through that, whatever that looked like. And eventually, I ended up being in a space of isolation for a couple of years, and I walked away from both of my sisters, and seemingly with no real explanation to Apostle Chase. Um, it wasn't until my father passed away that I had really talked to her, because she had reached out to me, um, and she just simply asked me, was I okay? And I said, no. Whereas everybody else that kept asking me, was I okay? And I was so tired of that question. Um, I would tell them, yes, I'm okay. But with her, I said, no. I said, as a matter of fact, I think I'm losing my mind. I don't know how to adapt to this. I don't understand. This is the night that he passed away. And she said, well, here's my number. And this is when I'm available. And she said, call me. And I called her the next night, and we talked for hours. And it was like I had never left. It was, I mean, we had always talked for hours. And I asked her, I said, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, why are you doing this for me? I said, why are you here? I said, I haven't talked to you in about 2 or 3 years. And I walked away from you with no explanation. She said, I never left you. You left me. She said, as a matter of fact, in my office, I have pictures of you, and I pray for you every day. She said, I never stopped loving you. She said, I was waiting for you to come back. And isn't that just like God? We walk away, we slip out of his presence, and then we're calling him, God, come back into my life. Come back, Lord. But he never left. He said, I've been here all the time. I've been here all the time. And I broke that day, because it's not often that you hear that someone that you walked away with no reason, no rhyme, no explanation, that they would even care to continue to pray for you. And thinking about it and knowing how she prayed, how she called heaven down, how she prayed things off of people, she is more than likely the reason why I am still here. Like, I am more than likely living off of her prayers. She was the epitome of love. Um, Even when it wasn't reciprocated, she was the epitome of love. She loved the unlovable, and she put a new meaning into loving the hell out of people, because she would literally love you to the point that you had no choice but to love her back. And although her time here on this earth was brief, Apostle Chase left a mantle. She left an additional playbook on how to do this thing called life and how to do kingdom work, how to build kingdom and how to build vessels up for the kingdom. And she left her mantle here, and it was a heavy mantle, but she left parts of her mantle with each and every one of us that were blessed enough to come across her path. She passed a very heavy torch that we now all carry in honor of her. I find strength and courage in knowing that she is resting with our Father. I don't have to question where she is. And I know to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I also know that we will meet again. She gave me some instructions before she left here, and I'm so glad that I immediately did what she told me to do, because that was a huge key into restoring some things in my life. So things that I have missed. Um, and I now know why she was doing it. I don't know if she knew that she wasn't going to be here much longer. Um, but we had conversations about this time. We had conversations about what life would look like if she was not here, because we had a running joke, because I am not the type that cares to go to funerals. And I told her, I was like, if something ever happens to you, I don't think I would be able to take going to your funeral. She required me to be at her funeral. Um, and I made that happen. Well, God made it happen. I kept that promise to her. I don't think that I would have been able to live with myself or forgive myself had I not gone, even with my belief about funerals, but just in honor of her. Now, did I cry that entire funeral? Absolutely. But I was there. And one of the hardest things that I did this past Saturday was literally watch my big sister tuck her big sister in one last time. Um, but God brought us together so that we could stand with one another in this time in honor of her. And I am so grateful that God did what he did through Apostle Chase. Um, Apostle Chase is still working from the other side, believe it or not, because I'm hearing a lot of things that are so similar to the things that I am experiencing when it comes to her. We have collectively experienced her presence since she has been gone in the physical. There are times when we can feel her hugging us. There are times when we dream about her. There are times when we kind of go off into these far off spaces and it's just me and her, you know. Um, there hasn't been much said between she and I, but I know from what I've seen and from what other people concerning her have confirmed, we all know that she is okay now. She is no longer suffering the troubles of this world. And to be honest with you, We all have the consensus that God gave her an option. And it would have been selfish of us to want her to come back to this side to continue to suffer in that body that was no longer working for her, just to say that we had our dear butterfly here. And while we share so many similarities, the three of us, um, and now there are two between our connection, I am going to rest assured in the fact that her assignment was complete. She has passed her torch. We all have to finish our legs of this race. And we're going to do just that with the things that she instilled in us, the things that she inspired us to do. I am definitely inspired to love hard, even when it's not reciprocated. My new phrase is definitely going to be I am going to love the hell out of you, and there is nothing you can do about it. I am definitely inspired to pray more. And one of the main questions that she has always asked is, what is God telling you? And the first time she asked me that question, I was like, I don't know. That was the day that she actually broke me. Same day. I said, I don't know what God is telling me. And she said, the reason you don't know what God is telling you is because you won't be quiet long enough to hear him. You won't seek him. You keep trying to do it all yourself. And when I began to get quiet and really, really seek the voice of God, I was able to hear him all the more. And it was clear. And if I could admonish you to do anything, it would be to love everybody, including the unlovable. It would be to learn how to stand flat footed, be bold and brave, and look the devil in his eye. I want to be so bold and brave, just like she was, to stand flat footed, cock my fist all the way back, and punch the devil straight in his eye, like I have imagined her doing so many times. See, the devil thinks that death is supposed to break us. Yeah, we missed our loved ones. I miss Chase. I miss, that was what I called her sometimes, but I miss her. I miss who she was to me. But those things are still here. They're still here. And the devil didn't do anything because he has no power over life and death. God gave her an option. He made a decision. And this is where we are. But there's also instruction and assignment that we now have to proceed. And that is what I'm going to do. And so, as I end this episode today, this tribute, I want to ask that we all keep her husband, Apostle Samuel Chase, her granddaughters, her sons, her spiritual children, her siblings, her entire family lifted in prayer. Um, and I don't have anything profound to say. If I haven't already said anything profound enough to change your mind today, the only thing that I can say is that, Apostle Chase, my pretty girl, I'm glad to know that you're healed. I love you, and there will never be a day that I don't think about you. There will never be a day that I won't remember something about you. And I have cried many tears, and I am sure we have so many more to cry on this journey of healing. But as you've always done, you've inspired another chapter, because we now have to adapt to living without you here in the presence, in the physical. But I look forward to the day that I get to enter the gates and hug you again. So, again, my pretty girl, you're healed in Jesus' name.